Have you ever stayed in an Airbnb? I have, and it was supposed to be a relaxing weekend getaway, but it turned into the most terrifying experience of my life. Last summer, my friends and I decided to rent an Airbnb in a small, quiet town. We found a charming old house that looked perfect for our trip. It was a bit isolated, surrounded by trees and far from the main road, but we thought it would add to the charm. Little did we know that isolation would become our worst nightmare. We arrived on a sunny Friday afternoon, excited for the weekend. The house was even more beautiful than the pictures. It had a rustic charm with its wooden beams, antique furniture, and a large porch overlooking the forest. The host, a friendly older man named Mr. Gray, met us there to hand over the keys and give us a quick tour. "There's a guest book in the living room," Mr. Gray said with a smile. "Feel free to leave a note about your stay." We settled in and spent the evening cooking dinner, playing board games and enjoying the peace and quiet. As night fell, the house took on a different atmosphere. The creaking of the old wood, the howling wind outside, and the distant hoot of an owl made it feel like we were in a horror movie. We laughed it off and went to bed, tired from the day's activities. My room was on the second floor, at the end of a long hallway. It felt a bit eerie, but I was too exhausted to care. I fell asleep almost instantly. In the middle of the night, I woke up to a strange noise. It sounded like footsteps coming from the attic above me. My heart started racing. "It's just the old house settling," I told myself. But the footsteps continued, slow and deliberate. I listened carefully, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Then I heard a soft whisper. My blood ran cold. "Is someone up there?" I whispered to myself. I decided to wake my friends. I tiptoed down the hallway and knocked on their doors, my hands shaking. We gathered in the living room, whispering about the noises I heard. "Maybe it's just animals," one of my friends suggested, but her voice didn't sound convinced. We decided to check the attic. We grabbed a flashlight and slowly climbed the narrow staircase. The door to the attic was old and creaky. I hesitated before opening it, my heart pounding in my chest. The attic was dark and musty, filled with old furniture and dusty boxes. We scanned the room with the flashlight, our nerves on edge. There was no sign of anyone. Just as we were about to leave, we heard it again, the whispering. This time it was clearer, like someone was standing right next to us. We froze, our eyes wide with fear. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. There was no response, just an eerie silence. We backed out of the attic and quickly closed the door. Back in the living room, we tried to make sense of what just happened. None of us could sleep, so we stayed up talking and trying to calm our nerves. Eventually, we decided to look through the guest book Mr. Gray had mentioned. Maybe other guests had experienced something similar. As we flipped through the pages, we found entries from other visitors describing strange noises, footsteps, and even sightings of a shadowy figure. One entry caught our attention. It was from a couple who had stayed a few months before. They wrote about seeing a ghostly figure in the attic and feeling an overwhelming sense of dread. We were terrified, but decided to confront Mr. Gray in the morning. We barely slept, and as soon as the sun came up, we called him. He arrived quickly, and we told him everything. Mr. Gray listened patiently, his expression serious. "I should have warned you," he said. "This house has a history. Years ago, a young woman lived here. She disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and some say her spirit never left." We were shocked and angry that he hadn't told us before. We packed our things and left as quickly as we could. As we drove away, I glanced back at the house. It looked peaceful in the morning light, but I knew better. That weekend was supposed to be fun and relaxing, but it turned into a nightmare. I've never stayed in an Airbnb since. So, the next time you book a stay, ask yourself, what secrets does that house hold? And are you brave enough to find out?